Welcome to the Mentoring Moments, Empowering Leaders to Mentor Our Future podcast. I am Dr. Rob Wadawa and believe that through teacher and leader mentorship, we can impact our future through our influences on students. As much as we believe in the power and impact of mentorship, many shy away from this rewarding work. The goal of these episodes is to lean into the work with teachers and leaders, hear their stories, and have fun with the mentoring process. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mentoring Moments. Today, we're sitting here with Todd Bloomer, and we're going to dive into the work by asking, how do you walk away from your dream job at the peak of your career? Todd Bloomer, former neighborhood principal. Yes, he led the high school his own 5 kids attended. Now director of school leadership for the Archdiocese of San Antonio and the author of Blueprint. After 29 years in public education and public schools and 18 as a principal, Todd left the role on his own terms. No burnout, no bitterness, just a bold commitment to quit while he still loved it. Now he coaches principals to dodge administrative quicksand and find that same joy. Today, we're talking legacy, the real reason leaders leave education, and naturally, whether he'd rather mentor a control freak CEO or principal or a chronic second guesser. So welcome to Mentoring Moments, Todd. Thank you so much. How you doing?
Hey, Rob, I'm doing great. It's an honor to be here today. I'm looking forward to diving in and talking school leadership and connecting and hopefully inspiring some folks at the end of our podcast.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Todd and I have met recently through our publishing company, which is fantastic. And I'm hope to forge a relationship with Todd because he's an awesome guy and he's doing some crazy stuff on TikTok. But we're going to dive right into the walking away at the top theme here. So, Todd, you left the job as a principal after many, many years, and you were the best ever year, the top year. You were like rocking it. So, how do you think you'd mentor somebody to recognize that they're in that awesome year so they can kind of move away at the right time?
Yeah, great question. And shout out to Darren Peppard, our friend Darren, for connecting us and believing in us. And so shout out to DP, who's just a friend and a mentor.
Yes.
You know, I 6 months before I made the decision, I really started thinking about this is my best year I've ever had. I'd hired all my assistant principals, most of the staff. I was a neighborhood person. My kids went there. Teachers were family and friends. And so the business is so hard. It's a difficult time to be in public ed, whether it's an administrator or a teacher. It's just a very challenging time. We're getting arrows thrown at us from all different angles, and it's just very difficult. And real quick, to be honest with you, stuff can change so quick. And you could go from being the rising star to the veteran to all of a sudden being on the outs. And you never want that. Like, just personally speaking, you want to leave a legacy, as you brought up legacy. You want to leave a legacy to be able to say you walked away, leaving that place better than where you found it. And I was very blessed that the 2 principals before me set the place up to be great. Like, I didn't have a lot to do at the high school. I just had to maintain and then continue to improve. And so I recognized that. And so as a 6.5 years, would have been 7 years as a principal at the high school, I really all of a sudden about November or December said, I don't think I'll ever be able to duplicate this again. Parent satisfaction was at an all-time high. Parent involvement was at an all-time high. All our athletic and extracurricular events were trending in the right direction. Academically, we're moving in the right direction. Kids were well-behaved. 2,500 students on a campus were well-behaved. They were engaged. I enjoyed going to work. I still had gas in the tank for what I was doing. And I thought, I owe this community so much. And I live down the road. When I go get my mail, there are parents and kids that wait for me or yell to me or talk to me when I go get my mail. When I go to the grocery store, they see me. I could never fabricate my love of the campus because I had this deep belief that if I did, kids would see right through it, parents would see through it, and teachers would see through it because I set that bar so high. And so I started talking to my wife and said, I may step away. And she was like, whoa, you love your job. You're going to retire there. And I was like, but what if next year? And part of it becomes some of our state legislators are really, kind of putting bullseyes on schools and making it very difficult and challenging new laws and stuff. And I'm not throwing shade on anybody because we control what we can control, and I can't control that. I get out and vote and I encourage people to advocate to vote, but I couldn't control that. And I just really started having that conversation to say, I don't think I'll ever be able to duplicate this. I don't want to become negative. I don't want to become sour. So I'm going to step away and leave it in the hands of someone that can take it to that next step. So I would tell that leader that's in that moment, hey, this is what I didn't do. Appreciate that moment. Like appreciate once you start thinking about it, appreciate that last prom, that last basketball game, that last football game, that last National Honor Society induction. Like because Andy Bernard, the great Andy Bernard from The Office, has a quote, and I'm going to mess it up, where he basically said, I wish somebody would have told me these were the best moments when I was in the best moments. And because, like, while I knew I was there, I didn't embrace the Tuesday or the fourth period. And I would tell you to do that. And I would tell you, if you're starting to think about retirement, because honestly, I was thinking about retirement also and transitioning to something else. And when I started thinking about that, when I started thinking this is a great year, I would tell you the only person you can have that conversation with is yourself. And you've got to be right with yourself. So principal, if you're at your 30, 35 and you're thinking about stepping away, you've got a great team and you're like, I could ride this out for 5 more years. I guess this is what I'd say. That's the wrong answer. Like I can't coast. I can't ride something out. I can't just ride it to the end. And because I can only do the job at a high level. And so I would tell a principal that if you are at that mindset that like 3 years to retirement, then you need to step away. You need to be that person to step away, even if the school's functioning at a high level. So I would say, putting yourself first isn't being selfish. And if you're like at that point where you're like, I'm working long hours and I got a great team and I love my job, but I'm neglecting my wife or neglecting my kids or my health, then maybe all of those factors are. And then shameless plug for Todd Bloomer. If you're having that discussion, reach out to me and let's talk about that and have a conversation. Because I did that with one of my leaders. A leader reached out to me and really walked me through. Darren Pepper reached out and really kind of just said, hey, think about this, this, and this. That's what I
Right.
would
No,
say.
that's fantastic. And what kind of stuck with me is when I speak to people at events regularly, I talk about being present, be in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're a parent, because time flies, and the next thing you know, they're 2 years old, and now my oldest is going
Mm-hmm.
to college. So it's a blink. Staying present, being in that moment. But I love that. So recognizing that time where you're kind of like, well, I could just coast for the next 2 years. That's the sign. That's the sign. If you're not still willing to learn and grow and move forward. So, what do you think might be the first sign if a leader is slipping into kind of that kind of quicksand? And how would you kind of pull them out if they needed more time?
Great question and great analogy to being present in the moment. And we talk about a work-life balance all the time, and there's no such thing. It's a myth. It's the Yeti. It's Bigfoot, right? There's no such thing. But when I'm at school, I love being at school. Like I love passing period. I love lunch duty. I love going to games. When I'm home, I love being at home. I love my wife and my children, and I love San Antonio, Texas, and I love that. I would tell you one of your first signs is if you don't love what you're doing. If you're dreading going to work, now everybody's got that. I'm tired. I did a 14-hour day. I've got a couple parents I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about if you're getting up every single day and you're starting to dread some things that are joy or bucket fillers, I would say that is the sign that, hey, I got to either get right with myself or I got to maybe step away because that community only gets 4 years of you as a high school principal, hopefully 4 years, right? Only get 4 years of you as a student or as a parent, and you owe it to them to be all in. And so my blueprint for a successful school year is when I'm at school, I'm all in. I'm all in. Like I'm Mr. Churchill. That Churchill High School is where I was. I love the kids. I love talking with kids. I love sitting in classrooms with teachers. I love the band concerts. My Broadway is our musical. When I go home, I try to disconnect as much as I possibly can. And that's hard for high school principals. So people that say I go home at 5 o'clock and I don't check emails, I don't think you're doing a good job. Like I'm not saying check emails, but if a teacher reached out to you and said, I need help, and you're like, this is my time out, I'll see you tomorrow. Like you're not the leader I'd want to work with or consider you a friend because I don't think you're doing a good job at that. So I think that's key. So I think if you're starting to feel those feelings of I just don't want to go to work, or you know what, I don't want to come back this year. I'm not looking forward to the August grind or Shocktober, which is a phenomenon. Then I would say
Right.
you got to start having those discussions with people that you trust. And I will end by saying this: like every principal needs a coach, someone who will just slap you across the face if you need to be slapped across the face. And Darren Peppard is that guy for me, and I love the guy to death. But he'll give you straight, honest answer. And you need someone that will tell you, hey, that fit, it ain't working. Or you know what, your attitude, you need to check yourself because it's you. It's not the school. It's you. What can you control? What is in your control of what you're doing? and then move forward with that. So if you're starting to be that person, that jaded person, because it starts with the principal, it starts at the top. If I got a crappy attitude, the teachers will have a crappy attitude. If I talk to you in the hallways about how mad I am about something that came down from Austin, Texas or central office, they're going to do the same thing. So every one of my staff members deserve to see me as their biggest champion and their leader. And if I couldn't do that on a consistent basis, that it was authentic, I knew.
Yeah,
That's what
no,
I tell principal.
100%. Yes, I mean, I appreciate you using the word love go to work because,
Mm-hmm.
author John Maxwell talks about loving your people, authentically loving the people that you
Mm-hmm.
lead. And also, he talks about the law of influence. Like you said, it's a ripple effect. If you go into your space and you're cranky, those people get cranky. Then they go in the classroom, the kids get cranky. Cranky kids go
Yep,
home, and now the family's cranky. It's a
that's right.
huge ripple effect. So, I say to people, if you wake up every morning, you feel like I get to go to school, and rather I
Mm-hmm.
have to go to school. That's where you want to live. You want to live in that moment of, I
Mm-hmm.
get to put my feet on the ground. I get to walk to
Yep,
school today or get in the building and I get to see kids. So
yep.
fantastic advice. I love it.
Thank you.
So let's move on to like the blueprint for thriving, right? Because some of the work that you've been doing in your book called The Blueprint. What do you believe is the most skipped step that leaders ignore?
Taking care of yourself. That
Okay.
is the 100% um, quicksand that we fall in. And it's one of those things that, we're servant leaders. I guess I'll start this way. We're servant leaders, and servant leaders serve others first. And the person that we don't serve tends to be ourselves or our family. And so I would say that to become a high school principal, I have to have a wonderful conversation with my wife so she understands the expectations of the job. And if we go out to eat, my superintendent calls me, I got to step away and take it. That's just part of the job. I try not to do that, but my wife has to be my biggest advocate, my champion, and understand that sometimes, and this is going to sound awful, sometimes family takes a back seat. So as I became more and more confident in my job and more, I gained clarity around who I was and what I wanted as a school. I was able to put myself first, and I realized that if I wasn't taking care of myself, I couldn't give to others. And so that was three things: that was mentally, physically, and that was spiritually. And I needed to be right in the head. I needed to be as fit as I could be, and I needed to be right with the good Lord. And so I felt like the transition over the last 3 years has allowed me that. I start my day every day 3 miles on the Riverwalk. 3 miles a day keeps the doctor away. And I'm not going to win any races, but that was good for me. I come back, shower, get ready. I read the Bible. I'm reading the Bible over the course of a year, 15 or 20 minutes. And then I get right with me before I go into work. And then my wife and I, Sunday fun day. We make sure Sunday is our day to be able to spend together. We go out and get something to eat. Got another family friends that we go with. It's our day. We don't make plans with anything else. That's our time. And you may think that's not a lot of time but it's great. It's our time together and we absolutely love it. So that is the principals put everybody else first. They answer emails till 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night. They eat a Big Mac. They neglect their health. They neglect their family. And that makes it extremely difficult. So in the blueprint, in chapter 6 of my book, that is 10 actionable items that I would say I would do differently if I could start my principalship over again. So if anybody's out there hasn't read the book, go right to chapter 6. That will entice you to read the whole thing. But I would say if you wanted to start there, that's where I would say that's how I pulled myself out of that quicksand. Because
Yeah, no,
everything in there, Rob, is personal experience. I'm not judging. I'm telling
right.
you from the standpoint of I failed. And this is
Right.
where I failed. This is what I would do differently.
No, and you being so vulnerable about that and sharing out is very, very important. And I think the listeners need to hear that vulnerability from us as leaders. You talk about being a high school principal as being a director. My wife, very supportive, understands what I'm getting into, the amount of hours I put in. And like you said, unfortunately, the balance of life, family does not always work out. Sometimes like you said, you're at dinner and you got to pick up the phone because your superintendent calls you, and that's just the way that it goes. So taking care of yourself is really important and keeping a routine. I have a very similar routine that you're talking about. Get up in the morning, try to work out a little bit, and do your coffee and your routine. And usually I read John Maxwell Daily Roots. So like get things as you go. So sometimes we see some people that start to hate their job, right? Because they're missing all of this stuff. So what is kind of the advice if you could rekindle the joy in somebody that started to go down that dark road?
If I was coaching you and you were that principal and you were jaded and losing your why, the easiest thing that you could do is get your butt out of the office. You can't be the principal from the office. And a lot of times the office is just negative. It's a negative email. It's a negative report. It's a negative phone call. Negative, 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 negative. And I can see why people get frustrated there. So you got to have the belief that it's people before paper, and you got to be out with the people. You got to be in classrooms. And I would tell any teacher that's struggling, if I was walking on your campus and you were just having a tough day, I would say, who's your best teacher on this campus? And I'd go spend 15 minutes in that class. And I'd step out in the hallway and I would make sure that we just talked about the joy that we saw. And then, you know what? At a high school, we had practices that occurred during the day. If Amanda Stevenson's watching, my band director, I went into the band hall one time, tough day, and I asked her to play Patton, which was a song we played at fourth quarters of our football games. And she was like, "We don't have any flutes or woodwinds." I don't know band, so I apologize. One of them, and I was like, "Do you need it?" And they're like, "Oh yeah." And I was like, "No, you don't. Just play it for me." And so, seeking joy by going out and actively looking for it, and it's there all around you. But if I'm in the office all day long, I don't get to meet these kids that are coming to our campus that are just joys, and they're exciting, and they're going to change the world. And they walk the hallways of your campus, and I walk right past them, and I don't even know who they are. And that's the man, you're doing it wrong if that's the case. And so I would tell you, and still to this day, if I got a bad phone call, and there were times where, even though I felt confident in my job and I was pretty good at my job, people were mean sometimes. I'd tell my secretary, "Hey, I'm going for a walk. I'll be back." And I'd wander the halls. I'd go sit in classrooms. I'd go sit in places that we had. We've got like student government groups on campus, or kids that mentor elementary schools in our classes. I'd go sit with those kids. Those are kids that they're giving up a class period to go and do great things. And then honestly, I would tell you this: get to know them. Let them get to know you. Who's got a job? Hey, I got a new pair of Adidas. Give me a fit rate. Who's watching something on Netflix? And just finding that joy in what you do. And then when you get to go to a football game or get to go to a band concert, man, make it a date night. Bring your wife, bring your family, make it like that is your thing. And like that is the infectious part about it. So if you're losing your wife, if you're losing your joy, get out of your office and just go wander. Just go sit in the back of a classroom. Let this past year, and I'll end it with this. This past year, tough day, and I walked by an English classroom, and they were doing some silent reading of something. I grabbed a book I was reading, went and sat in the back. Didn't listen to them, just sat in the back. And it was just my way of being able to read during the school day, right? Let's be honest,
Right.
but also being with great kids. And then they saw that, and they saw the principal in the back, and I thanked them for that. And then honestly, I thank the teacher. And when you do those type of things, this is the key. This helps with culture. When you do those type of things, step out and say, "Rob, you know what? Thank you so much. I had a bad day today, and I was upset and frustrated and jaded, and I was forgetting why I signed up to do this job. And thank you for reminding me and allowing me to sit in your classroom and be inspired by your love of what you did. You don't know this, but you helped me more than you did. Thank you so much. God bless Todd," or something. Wrote him a little
Right.
note, put it in their office, put it in their box. You came in next time, it was up there like a family photo. It was just something. And so if you're struggling, just get out. Just close your door and get out. Turn your radio
Yeah.
off.
I
Go.
love that, people before paper. That's just it's super simple to say. I always say the small things make a big difference. So I do handwritten notes, thank yous to my teachers, and same thing. They have them plastered on their walls and such. And getting out of the office. I had a former assistant superintendent of mine that was like, "You know what I love, Rob? I love when I go to your office and I know that you're not there." Because I know
Yeah,
that you're in
exactly.
all of the
Yeah.
buildings,
Yeah.
and that's what it's about. So you try to. I jokingly say to people, "Well, I put at least 10,000 steps in," but that also makes me go, "Am I walking around enough today to all the
Mm-hmm.
buildings?"
Mm-hmm.
So it's funny to use your step counter to kind of check in and make sure you're going
Yeah.
to different places.
When
So
I
let's move on.
retired from Churchill, they gave me a plaque on a red bench between some of our buildings. We have 9 buildings on our campus, and so a large campus. And so that was the ultimate honor because when you wanted to come find me, you would ask, "Are you at the bench or are you in your office?" And the answer was, "I'm at my bench," because I needed to be where people were, and I needed to see, and I needed to observe. But also, I don't want to be in the office. It's just negative. And you can sit on a bench and you can pretend like you're in a park, or you can
Right.
pretend like you're at the beach and sip on your coffee, and life is good. And so, honestly, that was the greatest gift ever, a plaque on a bench at the school that said the Bloomer Bench.
It's
And I will
awesome.
cherish that forever.
That's awesome. That's a good sign of what
Mhm.
you've built over the years. Beautiful stuff. So we talk about how dangerous the office is, right? So let's get some tactical advice, right? So now we know sometimes you have to be in the office. So now you're talking with a building principal and they know they're going to be walking into a brutal conversation or like they have to either fire a staff member or an angry parent and they know it's coming. What kind of 5 minute advice prep talk would you give them?
Uh, I'm a big, firm believer in self talk. And so, honestly, having this conversation in your car on the way to work is just a great role play. It's almost like you're a great actor and you're rehearsing what you're going to say. Um, I would say AI. If you're struggling where to start, go to AI and say in AI, is there a way that we can? Here's a conversation I'm going to have without putting specifics and give me some talking points as to what we have. I'd also say if there's a struggle, you reach out to a coach because we've all had these meetings in which we have and kind of bounce ideas off of Darren Peppert or a Todd Bloomer or Rob just to say, hey, how should I go? If you don't have that opportunity and the parent just drops in, I would say that you listen and you move your chair. This is a small thing. You move your chair away from your desk if you got a big desk, so that you're on an even level playing field with them. Sometimes we sit in these giant desks and we sit up above people and we look down on people. And so I would move my chair so I could make eye contact with you. I'd make sure my phone was not available. I'm not checking my phone. I'd tell my principal, my secretary, I don't interrupt. I would take notes and I'd seek clarifying questions as to what the concerns were. And if I didn't have answers, I would say I will get you back answers and here's what I will do. And I will make sure I will follow up with you before the end of the day. You'll get a phone call from X, Y, and Z and kind of going from there. But I would listen. And I would always remind people I'm a parent. And when you're a parent, you can connect with people. Remember, I lived in the community. I want the same things you want. School safety is the same. And I was able to use that, not an excuse, but like it's just who I am. Now, if you got to, get rid of a staff member or you got something along those lines, I would say to somebody, straight facts. Like, don't tell them this is going to be an easy conversation if this is not going to be an easy conversation. You can acknowledge this is going to be a challenging conversation for what I have, but this is kind of what we're going to do. And here's the facts. What would you like to say? And then here's our actions for what we're going to be. And in that case, I would say you're very black and white to what you have. Because if you're letting somebody go or you're terminating someone, you want to make sure that you're saying what you need to say that your human resource office would back up. So if you've never done that before, picking up the phone and calling human resource to say, okay, I'm going to be in this situation. Give me some talking points. What can I say? What can I not say? And then running it by them. Like, okay, this is what I want to say. This is what I'm going to do. And I just think that is a great way to be able to clearly articulate what you want to say and then take notes. And then the last thing I'll say, assume every parent or person is recording what you are saying. So
Yes.
if they tell you they're recording, I record. And sometimes you can record. It's a one party state in Texas. You don't tell the other person that you're recording. If you know this is contentious and you know that could be twisted, I'm going to record. Now, I would always tell people, hey, Rob, just to maintain or so I can take accurate notes, I'm going to record this. Would you like to record this? I'm not going to be slimy about it, but I'm also going to make sure that I am protected. And then, honestly, getting a good night's sleep at night, because it's a tough situation before you're coming in there, is extremely important. But laying your head on the pillow at night and knowing that what you're going to do is right by kids, and that is a firm believer. And then going back to, I believe that the good Lord, if you reach out to and pray, the good Lord will give you the words that you need to be able to provide comfort also in tough situations. Because I don't have to be a jerk if it's a tough situation. I can be empathetic. I can be caring. But like, what are those words that I need to? And then ultimately, if you want to have a witness in there, your secretary or someone in there, just to make sure, I think you can do that. Now, I felt more and more comfortable that I didn't need that. But if you're early on in those situations, you can bring someone in to say, I'm going to bring the secretary in. She's going to take notes. She's a trusted individual. And if they say, no, I don't want them, I would probably say, okay, step out. But if those are just some things that I would do for those difficult conversations, but I would role play and I would reach out to someone that's done it before because they can give you, let's role play this. Don't say that. That's terrible. Or, you know what? Lead with this. And if you don't have that, going to Chat GPT and saying, how can I do this? And give me 4 or 5 different things and getting real specific with it, I think could help you with a starting point to be able to go from there.
Oh, and I love how you separated between the two situations in the sense of one of that exists already, so you can do that self-talk, and then the other
Mhm.
one is angry customer on line one, and you got to immediately deal with that. And one of the things I always talk about is you have to listen to understand rather than to respond. Follow through with parents and with people that you're working with. And it's so important to do those things. So we're moving around to our 24-minute mark. So I'm going to move forward
Let's
to
go.
our RW rapid fire questions. Todd, you had these ahead of time. So here's number one. Would you rather mentor a control freak CEO or a chronic second guesser?
A chronic second guesser.
Oh, why is that?
Because I feel that with examples and stories that I can get a second guesser to believe in themselves because sometimes I feel that is just self-doubt. That is the imposter syndrome. And the first example, a control freak, I don't know if you can break that. Like, I don't know if you could ever break someone that has to have their fingerprints on everything. And so I would say I would rather go with someone that's second guessing because I can give you the inspiration and the hope and the skill set to be able to not second guess and trust yourself and trust your gut.
Awesome. So number two, what's your most toxic perfectionism phrase that you've heard before? Like failure's not an option.
uh, don't smile before Christmas or something
Oh,
stupid, something just stupid like that. Because
yeah,
while it is important to set expectations and set boundaries early on, uh, kids don't kids don't learn from people they don't like,
right.
and kids don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so that adage is just one of the dumbest things that I've ever heard when it comes to that. So I would say that's one of those things that I'm like, who the heck told you that? Why do we keep perpetuating that?
Yeah, no, I've heard that. I had this private student of mine years ago. She was in her 90s, taught for 30 plus years, and she said to me, "The worst advice anybody can say is don't smile till Christmas." So she heard it even back then. So
Yeah.
crazy. All right, number three, post-it notes or voice memos. How do you coach on the fly?
Post-it notes and index cards. I
Oh,
carry them in my
okay.
pocket. I carry them in my pocket. They make notes to me, so I could go back if I need to ask an assistant principal to follow up on something. I can hand the post-it note or the sticky note to the assistant principal. That's my little documentation to give them as a reminder. But also by doing that, I leave feedback every time I go into a classroom on an index card or a post-it note every single time I'm in a classroom. And by keeping them in the pocket, it's twofold reminders to me, but also something for a staff member to have because nothing drives a teacher more than having the principal come in and then leave and then wondering, did they do a good job? So it's kind of twofold to that question.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. All right, so here's our mic drop closer, my friend. So finish this sentence. The best mentors don't eliminate doubt. They dot dot dot.
uh, they challenge your thinking of your doubt. They ask great questions, and so doubt is real. We even as a 29 or 30-year veteran, we have doubt in every day, and that's good because that means that we have high expectations for ourselves. I equate that to right before kickoff of a football game, we got butterflies in our stomach. That's okay because we're ready to run down the field and take care of business. And so I think great leaders challenge you to think about that. Why is that? What could you do differently? What would you have done differently? Like, what level did you have? Self-evaluate. Have you asked about this? So I think that is just asking great questions. I think that is really how they not you can't eliminate doubt, but how they really challenge doubt.
No, and I love that because one of the things that I've said to people is, I'm a director of music and art, and I go in front of thousands of people that I talk and I address the audience and the parents. Every single time I got on that 5 minute before I'm going to go out, I get knots in my stomach, or right before you're going to do a presentation, you're always got that self-doubt. And for me, it's like if you have that self-doubt inside, it just means that you truly care about what you're doing and you truly love what you're doing, and it's still fresh. It's one of those things that if you still have that kind of butterflies, if you will, then I
Absolutely.
think you're still motivated to do the work. So it's fantastic. So I'm going to take a moment. Todd, thank you so much for being here. I'll give you a moment if you want to share anything, final words with the audience,
Yeah,
and
I
go
would love
for it.
to. Thank you. It's quite the honor to be here to talk with you. You're doing great things. I can't wait to read your book once it comes out.
Thanks.
If you go over to toddmbloomer.com, my book is available on my website. I'll autograph it, probably make the value of the book less with the Bloomer autograph, but it is available over there. The book is available on Amazon. I would love to connect with any of you. One of the things that I'm really doing this year that I'll end with is I'm trying to provide Uber and DoorDash like coaching for school leaders. And if you think about, we've all used Uber, we've all used DoorDash. We use it when we need it. We use it when we want it. We may not use it again for 6 weeks or a year. And so there are examples out there that we've talked about in the podcast where you might just need someone to bounce an idea off of. You've got a difficult conversation tomorrow and you need somebody in a pinch That is me, and that is where my TikTok and my Instagram videos have now led to is people reaching out and coaching opportunities over the phone. So if you're sitting out there listening to this and you're thinking, I could use someone to role play, I could use someone for an interview questions, I could use someone just for help my thought process, reach out. I've got just like Uber, there's very affordable Ubers that you could pick up at different times to be able to go. And I do feel like it gives me some more skin in the game to be able to help people. And that's ultimately the goal of what you want. So if you're out there thinking, I need somebody, please reach out. I'd love to be able to talk. We can make any financial plan work because ultimately, at the end of the day, we need a great principal in every school.
Right. And I'll just piggyback on that. I was sitting with a retired principal. She's not even 2 months yet, Ellen O'Neill, and she and I were talking about this, having a mentor that's outside of your organization and how much safer that can be. So Todd is a great resource for all of you to reach out to because he is an outside person, and an outside perspective really gives you honest and very important advice. So I want to say thank you, Todd, so much for joining me today, and thank you to our audience. And I'm signing out. So thanks so much. See you soon.